There are names in the field of ufology that anyone with even the slightest of an interest in the subject has heard of. From Bob Lazar, Dr. Stephen Greer, Stanton Friedman, Nick Pope, Linda Moulton Howe, and Giorgio Tsoukalos, to name but a few. One man who was instrumental in forming the modern field of UFO study was an American psychiatrist, writer, and professor, a winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and a dedicated researcher into a subject that, at the time, received much ridicule. John E. Mack. Let's take a look at the man who was one of the first to seriously question, are we alone? Welcome to IF, videos on history and mystery. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss a video again. So who and what was this scientist known for? The groundbreaking work of Dr. John Mack, particularly delving into the extraordinary case of the children of Howe, Zimbabwe, shaped the way in which research into UFO sightings is carried out today. The man spoke on the subject, saying to a group which had gathered to hear him speak at a bookstore in 2000, "The alien abduction experiences themselves are often initially quite frightening, yet over time many experiences form a powerful bond with one or more of these beings. People become deeply connected with these entities. They have palpable experiences that are just as powerful, sometimes more powerful, than relationships here. They view them not just as these cold, calculating, indifferent, big-eyed creatures, but bonds develop between experiencers and those strange creatures, which often has an intense, transcendental, spiritual, and sometimes even erotic element to it. They are coming now because they are conscious that we, as human beings on this planet, are destroying ourselves, and they love us and wouldn't see this happening. They are trying to influence us by bringing knowledge and understanding of our connection to each other and to the earth, and a reminder that we are just one part of a big whole." This statement coming toward the end of Mack's long and varied career. John E. Mack's early career saw him regarded as something of an academic superstar amongst his peers. He played an important part in the development of child psychology, this culminating with a Pulitzer Prize for his book A Prince of Our Disorder in 1977. 1977 also saw the professor become the department head at Harvard Medical School. He spoke with US presidents and was a prominent figure in talks leading to nuclear disarmament. His work in this area saw him receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1985. Then, in the 1990s, his career changed from the established, safe academic path of his early years to what those who held him in high regard thought was a subject reserved for his patients and not the good doctor: UFOs, aliens, and abductions. He began researching documented cases of alien abductions. He would meet with these UFO contactees and took the witnesses and their stories seriously. This embarrassed many of the colleagues that he worked with in mainstream academia, making John somewhat of an outcast. He began to meet with all those that were part of the ongoing investigations into extraterrestrial abduction. He studied the data with an open mind. The stories and evidence he saw made the scientists realize that even if only one of these cases was proved fact, then the established paradigm of humanity being alone in the universe would be smashed. Talking about his research in 1992, he said the following: "What was so powerful for me was the very precise correspondence of the experiences people were reporting, coming forth with great reluctance from all over the United States and all other parts of the world. The doctor noticed patterns in reports and similarities in the evidence that was presented. Something real was happening to these people, and it was a phenomena which seemed to be on the increase." He estimated that as many as 3 million Americans during the 90s may have had such an experience. He set strict criteria for those that claimed to have been abducted and developed rigorous tests to weed out those that were looking for attention with a fake story. He uncovered a wide demographic of abductees, ranging in age from toddlers to retirees. These people came from every walk of life, and in many cases the only thing these people had in common was their abduction story. He went on to say, "What I and others who have worked with the trauma of this have discovered is that the abductees begin to feel that their experiences were for a purpose, or had a positive meaning to them. They feel that the experience is expanding their consciousness, that they are connecting with themselves, that they are opening up to a whole new perspective of reality." It was an investigation in 1994 that saw the professor encounter what may be some of the strongest evidence he ever found. In September of 1994, a group of students took their morning recess in a small school in a little known village of Ruwa, Zimbabwe. It was during their break time that the 62 children witnessed several disc-like objects maneuvering through the morning sky. These objects shooting around the air before finally landing in a wooded area next to the schoolyard. Then, to the shock and amazement of the stunned children, two strange-looking beings emerged from one of the craft and approached the kids.
It was just glinting in the trees, and there was a man.
And what does he look like?
His face was like this, and his eyes were down here.
It had a silver but that was down the bottom across it.
Sure, it wasn't a Harrier jump jet or an aircraft?
No.
Something that the Zimbabwe Air Force
It was like
have got?
in a disc.
There's one thing sitting on the side and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
The one was standing in front, he didn't have any hair at all.
He had a big head and big black eyes.
I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
The students, whose ages ranged between 6 and 12, reacted in a number of different ways. Some ran about excitedly. A few were brave enough to go and inspect the craft and the creatures. The youngest students were frightened and began to cry. Some were frozen to the spot and stood staring at the creatures, allegedly receiving messages telepathically from the occupants of the unidentified craft.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
I felt scared. My heart kind of went faster and then slower and then faster and then slower. I thought the aliens would attack me.
Would attack you and do what? Hurt you?
Yes.
How would they do that?
I don't know. It was just staring at me.
With what? Staring at you as if what? As if to do what?
As if I wanted to come and take us.
Reports said the children ran to their teachers to report what they had seen. However, most of the adults did not believe the children. The story was reported in local news and began to gain traction and the attention of experts. Investigators visited the school. Cynthia Hind spoke with students and corroborated their claims, and she linked the incident to a rash of UFO sightings reported in the area a few days prior. John Mack heard of the encounter and in November of the same year flew down to Africa with a colleague and anthropologist, Dominique Kalamanopoulos, to document the case.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes. All the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
When you looked at those children, they were absolutely credible. Even on television, you can look at their faces and know if they're bullshitting or not, and they weren't.
Over the next few days, the two researchers interviewed the children, asking them to draw what they had seen. What they drew was consistent across all images: a spacecraft in the shape of a large silver disc, bright lights, and a red stripe running around the outside edge of the disc. The children drew no support structure for the craft, or depicted it hovering above the ground, and some reported hearing a strange hum being emitted from the disc. They went on to describe the alien visitors, saying that they wore tight black suits, were extremely thin, had small slits for mouths, and most eerily possessed powerful eyes. likened to rugby balls. The creature's gaze seemed hypnotic. The children were adamant that these beings and their craft were not from this planet, calling them aliens from another world. Several of the students reputed that they had had telepathic communication with these beings, the aliens showing the children an apocalyptic message about the destruction of our environment, a warning of a terrible future that humanity may face. The children were left shaken by the incident and were visibly shaking and somewhat subdued. Whatever had happened took a toll on them. This is when John Mack's expertise as a psychiatrist came into play, interviewing all of the children with well-crafted questions and compassion. He went in search of the truth about that day.
Well, I was quite convinced that this was something genuinely mysterious and real, and that I needed to think about, if this is real, then what does that mean? And if you saw him again, what would you do?
I'll ask him some questions.
What would you like to ask him?
I'll ask him what is he doing on Earth and what does he want with us.
From the body language, the genuine emotion, the sense of conviction, to the stunning consistency of the children's claims, it was apparent they were telling the truth, and that there was no hint of delusion. They were being truthful, and their retelling of this story has remained consistent until today. Cynthia Hind, who was the first investigator to arrive at the aerial encounter, praised the professor, calling him not only open-minded and prepared to listen, but an academic of some standing, one who risked his credibility with his colleagues to come out and say he believes the experiences of abductees are very real. She went on to say, "John Mack told me that the children behaved and talked as if they were totally sincere. In the footage I viewed, it certainly appears as if they were telling the truth. I think the children, as a voice of innocence and authentically, offered a perfect contribution to the awareness that many people are growing into. More people are coming forth and speaking about encounters that they have had with otherworldly beings. More and more people, as well as many noted physicists, are thinking about the possibility of different dimensions of reality. We'll probably always have skeptics who do not want to stretch their thinking about reality. John Mack used to talk about how people would have a certain paradigm about reality, but become resistant when something new could come along, like a crop circle, sighting, or an encounter with an extraterrestrial being. Accepting these aspects as real can be difficult for some. They have to give up their old beliefs about reality, and their worldview has to stretch and grow. It would seem that Dr. Mack was a revolutionary thinker. He put his academic position on the line. His insistence on expanding the definition of reality beyond our established restricted worldview shined a light on the positive experiences that these beings bring, and that they could be spiritually transformational. He paved the way for today's ufologists, and he may have still been doing so today if he hadn't tragically been killed by a drunk driver in 2004. Did you know about the professor and his work? Do you think this school encounter is the proof of extraterrestrial life that so many have been looking for? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do here on the channel, hit that red button, like and share. You can catch the latest by searching We Are If. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.